do they have a flyer for that at all?
Yes, sir.
It's on the board too.
Karina made a flyer.
It's on the half board.
Karina, can you send that to me? We'll get you some press.
But no, it's a full board.
Oh, it's a full board.
Yes, ma'am, it's got fixed this afternoon.
Good enough. How much was the barbecue?
For Miss Knight. Free of charge.
The conversations from the city council, Ms. Knight,
I had no comment.
Ms. Dean,
No comment.
and Ms. Wynn.
No comment.
And,
This sounds surprising.
I don't have any comments either. So, looking forward to good things at Southland. I think we made a good decision here, and now we have to implement it with the same effort that we tried to put into this.
Give it to you.
Bam!
Me, you.
Baker did it.
Jeez.
Baker did it.
I did.
Oh, that's cold-blooded right there. A moment of silence, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. We've got Mr. Qua online.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Qua. Approval of the June 8th, 2025 regular minutes and the June 8th work session minutes. You've had those before you. Any questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion, do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion properly seconded. All those in favor say aye. Ms. Knight?
Aye.
Mr. Qua?
Aye.
Ms. Dean?
Aye.
And Ms. Wynn?
Aye.
Motion carries. Second reading of an ordinance 2504 to establish a special tax district in the city of Morrow. This is the second reading, and it paralleled an original one, which we're going to defer until we can get additional signatures from the private sector. And it relates to basically the South Lake Mall and the different capital improvements that are necessary, everything from signage to lighting to roadway repaving and some landscaping. And you've had that before you. Any questions, comments, concerns?
So I would like to. I'll try to talk loud. I would like to bring up the summary of what this is going to potentially bring in for the 5 mills. What is it? 5 mills. We're estimating this is going to bring in how much, Mr. Baker?
Around the 240.
So we're saying additional taxes around $240,000 in this special tax district. I know the goal is for us to have a CID, and I think removing the CID resolution, we understand better the process of the CID. We had in prior conversations asking the question, how's it looking? How are the conversations going with regard to the CID? If you would share kind of the pulse of that.
We have a number of businesses that are just LLCs, so it's hard to identify a person who actually is the physical owner, right? And so those folks, for the most part, are either non-existent or hard to reach. The vast majority do not live here. Some of those that we have had a conversation with in terms of being able to get the signatures, to be honest, most people would not want to pay anything, right? They would prefer that the city pay for everything. And it's kind of like, look, when you have resources, we don't necessarily think it's reasonably fair for the entire city to basically, do what you should have done in the first place. In other words, we wouldn't be asking this question if the people in this area had managed to stay current, to manage to maintain their own properties. And then there is some unfairness where the vast majority of the responsibility falls onto South Lake Mall itself, because they're the ones who are paying a camp fee. But they don't own the roads. They don't own those right-of-ways. In the warranty deeds that were out there, there's an expectation that you maintain the property, but how would you go about enforcing that, right? And how long would it take for us to do that as an interested party? So it's gonna take us a minute, which was anticipated, because you've got both a carrot and a stick, right? At some point, we want the participation of the people that are over there. So once we get this thing up to speed, we don't have to come back to having this conversation again.
So with that being said, it doesn't sound like there's a groundswell of approval to create the CID as much as we would like to see that happen. So I'm just saying all of these things so that we keep in perspective. We're talking about $240,000, an additional tax district. The hope was for a CID, but if that does not come to fruition, that layers this special tax district. We've got a lot of things that we say that we want to get done, but whether or not realistically $240,000 is going to fit the bill with regard to how much things actually cost. We're talking about roads being paid. $240,000 in my mind, just as a quick estimate, pays for landscape and trees, but we've got significant capital improvements that we're talking about for that area. So whether or not we want to additionally tax, that may be the only way for things to get done specific to that area. But just being realistic in what that amount of money is going to be able to help the city and the businesses in that area do, we also have to be realistic with as well. And whether or not a CID, as much as we would like to see that it is a CID to form in that area, it's whether or not it, the people that own the properties, it's whether or not they want to participate. And it doesn't sound like it at this point in time. So I'm just saying all of that so that everyone is very clear on what we're talking about, and not just we were kind of putting the cart before the horse a little bit with the special tax district and the conversations about the CID, but the CID is going to take more time, obviously. So I did just want to bring that point to the forefront, because it was kind of like, well, do we vote to add additional taxes to an area where sanitation is going up for the commercial businesses. A lot of things are going up. But that's what we're here to vote on, whether or not we want to apply this tax district to begin collecting funds to maybe address some of the things, but just being realistic in how much money it's going to raise as additional taxes and what it's going to actually be able to do as a special tax district.
That would be true, but that's on an annual basis. So just like if you're in the private sector, the goal would be to use the leverage that the city or the development authorities have to be able to get the lowest interest rate possible, where the average private sector may be getting an interest rate. So let's say the private sector, we're all working together, you're probably getting 8 or 9. If you're working with the city itself, you're going to probably be hopefully subpar 4, but you're going to save yourself a decent amount of interest. You don't have a number of other things. In other words, this is stuff we understand, right? We understand signage, we understand roads, we understand these other types of things.
So you're applying what you just said to the formation of a CID for financing, or are you applying
basically
the
what
capability of the city?
we set it up through, and there'll be several different options, but the bottom line is you find the funding source first. We have that, or we hopefully will have that. Then you could basically get your financing to make it happen. Yeah.
So just for clarity, are you saying financing for the city or financing for the CID?
This would be technically for the city because the CID doesn't exist yet. Right. So I can't ask them to do something. At some point, I certainly want them to pick it up. Right.
Right. And I'm asking for clarity, because there's a lot of creativity with thought processes. So, we have to understand if the goal is to kind of create this tax district and then there's a movement to find additional financing, then let's be clear so that people understand what the impact of that is today.
Totally agree. And then unlike a tax allocation district where we're basically trying to finance something with the hope that there will be additional money, in this case you're financing something that is actually based on current property values. Let's say you land another hotel or we get additional buildings being built over there, which is certainly the hope. Then that obviously raises on that very same piece of property the tax valuations. In other words, what is available today, South Lake is significantly undervalued, right? I mean, it used to be 120 million by itself, and today it's at 40 million. So as things go back, you would hope that same amount of money might raise either $500,000 paid off early, and that's where the transition then goes into the private sector, where it says, we have every reason to believe we'll be successful based on past performance. That's where they kick in and say, this is all we're asking to do, but this is where they have to have it. It cannot look like this. It's just unacceptable.
And so when you're saying private sector, this will be my last question. Again, for clarity, when you're saying private sector, you already have somebody in mind for partnership, or is this something?
When you say partnership, define.
Well, you said private sector, so
Well,
I'm just
when
wondering.
your private sector, the property is all owned by the private sector. Anything that's taxed is not government owned, right? So, example, some of the stuff we were showing you this afternoon, we don't know whether that'll materialize or not, but if it did materialize, there's $4.5–5 million worth of additional value that wouldn't have been on the tax bills today. Fair? So that would be fair game. But it would be impossible for us to sit here and say, what is this place going to look like 5 years from now, 10 years from now? I don't know. I can just tell you what it looked like 2 years ago, and you've got about $50 million worth of additional private sector money that wasn't there before. You didn't have 2 hotels. There's 40 million right there. But you got to start. The signage is unacceptable. The school system has put up $140 million. They're building in your backyard. Those are things that are going to drive economic value not only to the mall but to our whole area, I believe. You got to have a way to pay for it. And I don't know that it's fair to, tax your citizens when in total honesty, I don't think it's their fault, right? It's either our fault, probably, collectively, whoever's been here over a long period of time. But certainly it is the fault of the owners of the property themselves for not maintaining it. It's just a fact, right? So over time, as the valuations of the property drop, they save money. The city has managed to reduce property taxes several times over the last few years, and they don't even cut the grass, right? So if I put real money back in your pocket, what did you do with it? You certainly didn't reinvest it here, right? But now this city and this county need reinvestment. And as much as I would love for people to volunteer to pay more, they're not going to fight you if you do it. But the bottom line is they're not going to raise their hand as willingly as we would like.
And so that's the
And would we?
that's
I mean, if
the
somebody said you want to keep your money or not, we'd
subcontext.
probably say no.
That's the subcontext of this conversation, in understanding that, I think, we've had sidebar conversations, asking them to volunteer to do it. Well, this takes care of even asking them. So the reality is the taxation part is going to happen.
We hope. We'll know here in a minute.
Yeah, for sure. And so there was a question before.
And then
about,
I think they will participate, because at that point, I have your money. Would you like to help us figure out where to spend it and get the best return on your investment?
And so with that, there was the question asked before about transitioning from it being a special tax district to the CID. Legally, only one tax can apply. So I guess with the other resolution really being irrelevant at this point, just some consideration needs to be made in the transition of the special tax district if it does get to a point where it's a CID, putting that on the radar, because we have had conversations about that too.
Fair enough, I agree. Other questions? Comments? Hearing none? We're about to find out. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I hear a second? Motion properly seconded. All those in favor say aye. Ms. Knight?
Aye.
Ms. Dean?
Aye.
Mr. Quah?
Aye.
And Ms. Whitten?
Nay.
Motion carries. We're in business, folks, so we like that. Questions, comments, concerns from the audience? This would be a good time. I think there was somebody from Woodstone. Did you want to make comments today? It doesn't have to be related to whatever we just talked about, but yep, we're good. Come on. Mr. Quah's on an airplane, I believe. Thank you, Quah.
Good evening.
Been a minute. How you been?
Very well. Nice to see everyone. Honorable council, appreciate the time and the opportunity to come before this evening. I just briefly wanted to just do a little update and then just ask questions basically regarding what can be shared as a resource regarding housing authority under Clayton County that works through the city of Marble. So in Woodstone, I've noticed that we're to a point where the houses that are being sold, the condos that are being sold, the last 4 were bought by Fair Offer Atlanta. They were remodeled, they were placed on the market, and now we have actual homeowner occupied condominiums.
That sounds pretty cool, right?
But yeah, so some progress is being made as far as that respect is concerned. My only other concern and what I've been able to accomplish by going in front of Georgia legislatures to get House bill passed that helps with property maintenance, upkeep, ensuring that the landlords, the language needs to be upgraded to say that you are leasing this property in a habitable condition as opposed to an as-is condition. So we've made some progress in getting House bill signed that's going to help us sustain the community a little further. I'm interested in knowing if there are other resources that our community can tap into for the purpose of conservation and sustainability. As you know, Woodstone is like 53 years old, which makes it historical by age, but not by events or any other measure. So there's a lot of land, there's a lot of trees. This is all a part of our assets in that community, and we would like to be able to ensure that no one has opportunities to come in, take them, destroy them, use them, chop them down, or anything else. So I'm trying to just get an understanding of how the City of Marlboro partnerships with Clayton County Housing Authority when it comes to resources to help us revitalize in other areas, such as help with roads. So if we needed help with funding for the roads, is that a resource that's available to us? Is code enforcement available to us if one of the property owners wants to report, one of the tenants wants to report an owner for their conditions? Is code enforcement available to us? I've made a call before, and it was really something different. It was like the public access road into the community. On the right, in the bushes, there's a bumper, a back bumper, still got the license plate on it and everything.
Is it still there now?
Sir,
Is it still there now?
yes. And
That we
so,
can solve.
I'm sorry,
That we could solve.
okay.
I'm just saying, that one I can get, okay? Roads are harder because your roads are like a driveway to a private citizen.
Understood.
So that would be, and you're an HOA, right? So an HOA is basically an elected group of people from your own citizenry. And when you have issues within that, just like asking, to replace somebody's roof, that would be your HOA basically making petition to whatever's available, part of CDBG grants or other things along those lines. Code enforcement, the answer is yes. Just even if it's private property, the bottom line, if Dorothy's got a bumper sitting on the side of her road, we're gonna address it. We have made some changes in code enforcement, right, in recent memory. The individual is not here tonight. He does live in the city though. I think he'll be pleased with the results. And it's just a matter of finding, getting her number.
As far as the housing authority, the city of Marlboro did have a housing authority board, but we don't have an active board, and that may be something that we need to return to as a resource, to kind of help the habitability of some of the properties, things that may be issues for those residents living in those communities. That may be a vehicle of assistance, another layer of support that the city can provide. We should probably have conversations about reigniting the Housing Authority Board. And if there's any grant funding, that really has the ability to funnel down to actual residents, it may be able to be facilitated through a housing authority.
Okay, understood. We, based on the budget that we're seeing, the community is still not taking in less than $200,000 annually. And so I
I'm not seeing where such funds could be exhausted on electricity for the community. We do our own trash services, we pay our own water. We are responsible for the roofing, the insurance, and of course the common elements in the community. I would like to be able to see if we could get some of our funding to give the housing authority a better look at us partnering with them. So we're not just asking for grants. We wanna kinda see if we can coordinate some of our association fees with, the housing authority to kind of make it
Explain that to me, because I don't get it. You collect fees, but your fees are very specific, right? So it's gonna be common area maintenance, insurance, different things like that.
correct.
You've got roads that are probably the better part of 50 some odd years old. You know, and of course you gotta pay for that infrastructure, right? And drainage and whatever else you have. So even if I'm collecting a certain amount of money, there's usually a capital fund over here to the side that
Yes.
talks about, and most
There's
of
a
the time.
reserve.
Yeah, most of the time it's not funded properly, right? In other words, you guys are unlike Northridge. Northridge has, the roofs are part of Northridge, right? Yours are not. So therefore, if your roof leaks at your property and damages your house, that's your own homeowner's insurance that covers that.
No, we have insurance for, we cover the roofs.
The-
We
the-
cover everybody's roofs.
So the roof is yours.
Yes, we
Because they
cover
got
the
the lumbar
association.
roofs, right? They got the lumbar roofs are flat. That's what they call a lumbar roof, right?
I'm not understanding.
Your roofs over at Northridge are flat.
No,
Yeah,
Woodstone.
yes.
I'm sorry,
Yes.
Woodstone are flat, right? It's
Yes,
called a
they are.
lumbar roof, you know, the parapet goes up, then you go down a little bit, usually have the air conditioning up there.
Correct.
Okay, so my understanding was that that roof was not part of the HOA. Are you telling me that it is?
It is.
Okay.
I haven't done anything, as far as roofing. I'm responsible for the unit that's on the roof.
Right.
But as far as the insurance and the repairs for the roof, our assessments go to those. We're responsible for what happens on the inside.
Yeah, because those are known for leaking.
We,
Well, that makes your insurance go up. In other words, what part of your HOA, now, what were your HOA fees, just out of curiosity?
220,
Right, and I think Northridge, anybody here from Northridge, wasn't it almost like 400?
I think it's like three.
a month?
Yes, it's high.
330,
300
340,
and something.
3 something.
It's over 300.
And what ends up happening is, let's just say your total out-of-pocket expense, right? So if I pay, say, 400 for an HOA fee, plus I pay a house note of X, when you add the two together, if this HOA fee keeps going up, it actually devalues the price of the unit, which is why you're starting to see, I saw one recently, about 178 for a condo over at Woodstone,
Correct.
where, I mean, it wasn't very long ago, we were talking, you know, a tenth
50.
of that, yeah. But Northridge, because of its age based on 85, always was more expensive.
Okay.
But now that their HOA is that much more expensive, they're not getting 178. They haven't broke 200. Nowhere over there has broke 200 yet.
No, we've gotten up to 185,
I know.
170.
Yours are bigger though, right? Because I think yours are average about 1,800 square feet, give or take.
Yeah, and I think, additionally, them being, conjoined side by side as opposed to stacked.
Fair enough. There's nobody on top of it. Yeah. But it's all right. Keep on. We'll chime in. We'll tell you what we know.
Okay,
But,
so,
yours are like townhouses, right?
Correct.
True.
Other than
Yeah,
this.
side by side.
Okay.
And I
yes,
did want to clarify, when I say grants, housing authorities typically, you know, based off of my knowledge, can apply for the grants. I wasn't necessarily saying your HOA would have the ability to apply for grants. That I'm not sure. So,
gotcha.
but housing authorities can be a vehicle to provide resources as well as another layer of accountability for, you know, quality of life.
You're going to hear something from the Department of Community Affairs called basically a community development block grant. In cities of a certain size, that money goes directly to the city, and then the city tries to figure out how to allocate for types of things that you're talking about. Because Morrow does not meet that size, our funding goes to Clayton County, in which case we go back over to them and beg them for our own money back. Doesn't work very well.
No, that's
It
not.
doesn't work very well in terms of how much cash you've got. It doesn't mean that we don't beg, it just means we don't have the cash register to back it up.
Okay,
been sufficient, and it kind of gives me a focus again in a direction. It's slow moving, but to know what type of support I have other than what I'm getting from this body.
Now, you guys used to have a pool in the back. Did they close
Used to.
that up?
It is now, it has been filled for enough years for it to be grassland that I could see a veggie garden in. I have my own visions, you know, when I see the space as it is now. I wouldn't recommend reopening a pool.
I don't either. It's a liability. I'm just trying to figure out, it's been a minute since I've been all the way back through there. We know you're still doing trash collection through the back, but you're paying about the same rate I'm paying at my house, I would assume, right? Northridge collects theirs. Is there anybody here from Northridge? Right. Northridge just throws theirs out on the street. How they've managed to do that and continue to do that just blows my mind. But you guys still collect, you got the little containers in the back, right?
Correct, yes.
And are those city containers, Baker? So you're happy with that?
I'm pretty happy with what they've been doing, is kind of using it for maybe to prop up a basketball hoop for when there are individuals who have kids. The other thing I've noticed is that Woodstone is not child friendly, if you will. There's no playscape, and I'm not looking to have one because
How many children you have over there? Not very many, though, right?
I would say when I see a school bus unload, we might have 12 to 15
How many units you got over there? 120?
since 2018.
How many units? How many total units?
Oh, I'm sorry, 122. So with that, it's more developed for, you might as well say people without kids. Of course, you can't discriminate and say no kids allowed, but you can remove those, you know.
What's the rental rate over there? It used to be really bad.
The
The number of people that are just renting the property, right? Because
the number of people on the property,
no,
Renting.
renting, just
Not
lease
owner-occupied.
versus owner.
I believe we are close to like 35 or 36% in investors.
Investors.
Correct.
Because there's a break number for, say, FHA financing and things like that. Where
Yes.
if you get a certain point, so you're past that, which means you would not qualify for an FHA loan.
That would be correct. So
See, those are things that also determine price points, right? So FHA, for those of you who don't do it every day, that's where you're putting a smaller percentage down, right? But they're basically saying as a federal government program, because your rental rate is too high, we're not gonna give you that opportunity. Right. Now, when you start to break 170, that may not be the best answer for you. You might be better putting 5% down. But on some of the smaller stuff, when it was a lot less expensive, that was a pretty decent deal to be able to get there. But that would obviously be one thing that and of course you can't make that happen. But as things continue to improve and the investors sell, then I would strive to achieve, if you would, that break point, and then you got to figure out how to hold it. Challenges like when the state of Georgia came through the front, right? It was impossible for them to do a partial condemnation because they could not get the property, every single property owner over there. They could not find it, right? So it's you guys get elected by a certain number of people, right?
Correct.
But if somebody's actually trying to work with the whole group and has to have a certain percentage of participation, you can't get it.
Kind of like a CID.
Well, the other part of the House bill,
Yes.
the other part of the House bill passed, requires out-of-state investors to have an in-state contact agent on the ground in the state of Georgia. So with that, we were able to connect, not maybe get that investor, to the table or to the proxy. How are we gonna handle the voting process? But it is a requirement now that if you're an out-of-state investor and an owner of residential property in the state of Georgia, you must have an in-state contact. So that was one of the other House
That's pretty
bills we were able to get passed.
Now there was one person, I won't say who, because you probably know who I'm talking about, that was on the HOA board for a long time and bought up some properties. Is he still breathing?
By hair,
By hair? Okay.
he's hanging
What,
on. He has
what's his
7.
family planning system when he is no longer hanging by a hair? Right, it goes into probate somehow, right?
Well, I did some follow-up on his well-being, because I was concerned his properties were being sold. Officer Ramos was kind enough to check on his well-being. She found that, his son does currently have power of attorney over his affairs. But you know, like you said, what happens thereafter? Right now, his properties, one is on for sale now. It's going on the market now. So this will be his 3rd being sold
In
in
recent-
less than 2 years.
See, that's awesome, right? And the reason you do that, if you dump 5 or more properties on the market all at one time because of probate sale, it's just gonna depress the pricing, right? You've made some improvements, now suddenly we make a mass exodus, selling them onesies and twosies, perfect. That's good planning for July 22nd, 2025 work session to order. You've got the review of the meeting minutes for the regular session and the work session on June 8th. Any questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none. You got the second reading of an ordinance. For those that remember, there was actually 2 separate ordinances. The first one's had the first reading. We're basically gonna hold that a little bit until we can get the required signatures that we need, and we gotta be able to get a lot of LLCs in the building. And so we'll keep doing what we're doing. The second one is related more to the special tax district, which is the same district. And this one, the idea is to raise money for basically significant capital improvements around South Lake Mall specifically. So the only people that would pay a portion of that is somebody in the tax district. So those are no residents, all commercial businesses. Questions, comments, concerns on that? Hearing none.
I have a question.
Go
Are
ahead.
the people the businesses you're contacting interested in this and want to move forward?
Some of these are LLCs, it's not even their money.
It's not their money.
It's not their money. So you could be somebody who represents somebody, but it's really not yours, stock, things like that. No one really wants to pay for anything, just being honest. But, you know, when you ask questions along the lines of how do we take it from where it is to where it needs to go, they're kind of just looking at you to solve all their problems for them. You know, just financially, it's just not possible. It's not in the cards. So in the end, you know, ultimately, no matter what we do, we'll pay a portion as a city anyway, right? But not everybody's just jumping up and down. The number of people that you could actually talk to, as far as like somebody who actually owns it, even if it is an LLC where you have an owner. Like there's one person that owns 2 properties. We at least know enough about the Harley Davidson people. You know, those are real people. Probably the fun one is Avis Rental. Is still owned by the original people who did the car dealership 20 years ago. Remember, you got Andy Lewis on one side and Jackson on the other. So it's the Jackson family. So, let's see what else we got over there.
Question. Do we know, how many, just, you know, off the top of your head, how many of the businesses that are in this district are local and how many are out of state or whatever?
Now, when you say businesses,
That,
property owners,
yes, that's
we
gonna
do
be
know
in
because
this.
we got the sheet, but
I'd say 80 to 90% are.
yeah, there's an Excel spreadsheet. Didn't we see that last time?
Yes, it's a part of the
Okay,
package.
it's in the packet. In the packet, sorry. I know I saw it.
So-
But you're not gonna see a whole lot of Morrow, Georgia at all.
Right, but state. So, you know, we're looking at trying to contact people.
That is harder to do than it sounds, because you're sending information to a post office box or wherever you're sending it. So it's not like we have, you know, John's phone number. It's gonna take a minute, which is understandable. It's not a real issue. They will find us. as the check request comes in, they will find you, I promise. Somebody will find you, at least the finance department will find you. But believe it or not, there's gonna be others, and we've seen this with how the city operates anyway, is they don't volunteer anything, but if let's say your garbage bill goes up or something, they just pay. So, but that's really not what we want. I mean, we want to pay it, don't get me wrong. We want participation, right? So this is a piece of property you own, and we would like to see if you want to keep it, maintain it, what's the vision for your property, how it fits in, and understand the vision of what's happening around it, and everybody to kind of work together to make it happen. Right now, for an example, the CAM fee is paid for just by South Lake Mall. That means all the landscaping, all the lighting, all the other stuff you see there is paid by the mall. Nobody around there pays anything, even though in your warranty deed, it says you're supposed to maintain your property to a certain level. It would take us a month of Sundays to be able to enforce that warranty deed. And you got a better.
Like in front of Macy's, they're supposed to maintain all their shrubbery and stuff.
Well, Macy's does not Macy's, but whoever's looking after Macy's does a better job than most. So thank goodness Macy's is on the front, right? But there's not when you look at all the big boxes, none of us have like a huge amount of landscaping. It's pretty much asphalt, and because there's no islands really in the parking lot, lighting and stuff like that. But we got about 6 months to deliver, a better visual appeal, right? Lighting, landscaping, signage, based on what the school system says they're going to deliver this building. And even if they can't, then that just buys you another couple months, but not much more than that. Questions, comments, anybody? Well, that was pretty much the scope of that. We can drink some coffee if you got some, Mr. Victor.
Yeah, give me
All right. Well, we'll see y'all back at 7:30.